This time on Art Rocks, taking a piece of wood and seeing the bowl or the vase hidden within.
Even in the same short piece of wood, I've got a big piece of maple one time, and it was just every piece was different. You wouldn't have thought any of it came out of the same tree.
Finding a path to self-discipline through the creative process.
When you start, you think you know how to draw. That's when the process of learning comes, and you need to have patience.
Trading the actor's role for a director's chair.
I learned pretty early on that if I wanted to always work in theater, consistently work in theater, I should probably have more skills than just being able to memorize lines.
And nature's raw materials transformed.
I'm interested in exploring the transformative nature of materials and how the language can shift.
Those stories up next on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine and your host for this episode of Art Rocks. We all know the phrase about not seeing the forest for the trees. Well, Audie Maxie can't look at a tree, let alone a forest, without seeing the wooden vase, bowl or other decorative objects trapped within. An engineer by day, a wood turner by night, Maxie explains how he turns his talent to creating beautiful things.
My grandfather was a woodworker of sorts. He did all kind of axe handles and boat paddles and worked with wood all of his life. He would have loved to have had a cabinet shop and made things of that nature, but he had just a very crude draw knife and an axe. He could do as much with an axe as a lot of people could do nowadays with modern tools. He just kind of developed a taste in me, and I just followed that up. I went from making boat paddles and axe handles to gradually making furniture and small items like that, and then I just decided I could do wood turning. And looked interesting, and I bought a small lathe and started making some little Christmas presents and duck calls and things, and realized I kind of liked making the bowls. I didn't like making parts that had to fit together, and I didn't have a shop, and the wood would swell during high humidity and it'd dry out, so it would fit one day and it wouldn't fit the next, and the bowls just kind of flexed and moved as they wanted to. It wasn't a problem, and I just gravitated to making bowls and had a small lathe and made small bowls, and said, well, I can make bigger bowls, and I need a bigger lathe, and bought one and wore it out and bought a bigger lathe, and I've been making stuff ever since. Making a big one is really not any more challenging. It just takes longer because you got more wood to remove. It's not uncommon to take a 100-pound block of wood and turn a 6-pound bowl or 7-pound bowl out of it. The lathe actually holds the wood and turns it. And then I have different knives that I can use to just shave away what I don't want. It's kind of different from like a table saw. The blade turns and the wood is basically stationary. The lathe, the wood turns and the blade is stationary. So it's a little different, but it works for you. This is the sunset piece. Just looking at it, to me, it looks like a beach with rolling waves and the sun going down over the horizon, just looking at the green pattern. This one is made from spalted hackberry. I don't get much of it, but I really enjoyed working with these pieces. This is one of my favorite pieces just because of the grain out of the maple tree. It's just different. And just looking at different areas, you can see the fiddleback, wavy pattern, some of the spalting down in this area. It was just a beautiful piece. A little bit of bird's eye one side, but it was very challenging because of the depth. And this is basically a 19-inch cube when I started, and I was just able to just flatten off the bottom, make a little foot, and just start turning away a little bit. Just all I had to do really is round it up, so it's still almost 19 inches across. But at the depth, the further you cut, the more dangerous it becomes and the harder it becomes, because the tool, a lot more of it's sticking inside. And I just ran out of tool rest and just had to keep gently, easily taking off a little bit more out of the bottom. So this is one of the more challenging pieces just because of the depth. I really like working with walnut. It just finishes very well. The dust is a very nuisance. But I really like walnut, maple, any kind of spalted wood. Pecan spalt's really pretty. It makes dark lines throughout it. It really pops when you see it. It's really one of those that you don't know what you've got until you start cutting into, and it really amazes most of the time. Even in the same short piece of wood, I've got a big piece of maple one time, and it was just every piece was different. You wouldn't have thought any of it came out of the same tree. I'd cut a bowl, and it had this beautiful fiddleback pattern, just really amazing. And the next piece might have some spalting where it had these dark black lines through it. There was a couple of pieces of it had bird's eye, these little eyes that just shined. It was an amazing piece of maple wood, and I wish I'd get another one real soon. But yes, I'm always surprised by what you find. And then I use tung oil finish. It's something the Chinese have used for 1,000 years. It's supposed to be food safe. It is classified as food safe. I make rolling pins and little vases, big flower vases sometimes, just depending on what kind of wood I can get. Those are the main things I make. I make little cups sometime. I've had a special order for some wine glasses that I've made. They become wedding gifts, Christmas presents, things of that nature. Then what I can, I take to a few art shows throughout the year. I sign and date them and put what kind of wood it's made from. Sometimes I put where I recovered the log from. I started buying a few pieces just because we can't get big leaf maple and some other things here locally, but I'm just flooded with wood from other places. People know that I do this and they call me all the time. I'm gonna have to take this tree down. Won't you come get some of it and make me something out of it? Or had this storm came through, this limb fell down, come make me something out of it. So I have that all the time. Part of it is just good therapy. You know, I come home from work, eat supper, and I come outside and turn. I think a lot of it, though, is the thrill of revealing what's there. You know, cutting into a block of wood and seeing what the grain looks like, what the pattern is. I've salvaged many pieces of somebody else's firewood, go to somebody's home and say, "You're not going to burn this."
Maxie explained that the drying or seasoning process means that it can be months before any turned bowl or vase will be ready for use. Good things, as they say, take time. Accomplished artists from near and far are showcasing work in communities near you. So here are some of our picks for notable exhibits coming soon to museums and galleries in your neck of the woods. For more about these and many more events in the arts, subscribe to Arts Monthly, the new free e-newsletter from the editors at LPB and Country Roads Magazine. Sign up at lpb.org/artrocks. And while you're there, the Art Rocks website features every episode of the program, so to see or share any episode again, visit lpb.org/artrocks. Come along now as we visit a young man with the great good fortune of knowing exactly what he wants to do. Orlando, Florida's Kenneth Rodriguez might still be in high school, but he already has a path plotted for making himself a career as a professional artist. Want to know how? Come and see.
My name is Kenneth Rodriguez. I go to University High School Orlando, and I love art. When I was a little kid, I looked up to my brother. He draws too. He was my inspiration. When you start, you think you know how to draw. That's when the process of learning comes, and you need to have patience. I started trying different medias. I really like pen, like graphite, and I like realism. When I draw a realistic person, like a portrait, or just flowers. I like flowers, so I try to combine things that I like in one drawing.
Last year he came and he was a transfer. He had a lot of patience. He actually saw a lot of detail in everything. He was very mature, very patient, and very focused on his goals for his future. It's kind of rare to see that in a high school age, because during that time they're still wondering what they want to do, where they're going to go. He already had that goal set on when he made that happen.
Most of the time it doesn't come out like how I imagined it, and so I just have to keep trying to do it like how I see it.
He pushed as far as experimenting, he pushed as far as patience and learning, and he pushed as far as researching how to do it correctly. So showing that is showing that he's very mature for his age, and that's going to carry him very far.
I want to be a graphic artist and then go pursue video games or tattoos. I found this website that you can sell prints. I was drawing, but I wanted to make something out of it. I started selling them online, and I do commissions too. It's an advantage to start now.
The roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd. Ask any actor. Live theatre can be absolutely addictive. Chad Sweet lives and breathes this unique atmosphere as a technical director and a production manager of the Reno Little Theater in Reno, Nevada. Let's look into Sweet's entire journey from the moment he steps on stage to being a character holding the whole show together.
To me, theater is the ultimate art form. It combines literally every art form in the world. You have literary with a script, you have performance art, you've got oftentimes dance or choreography. I mean, even the way a character moves around the stage, I mean, you have to, a lot of times, choreograph that stuff. It has to be really well thought out. You have visual art with scenic painting and the design of the set. You know, it's just a really beautiful amalgamation of almost every single art form. As most people in theater, I started out as an actor. My first show was at the age of 11. I was in Peter Pan. I found something I really loved, and I didn't go to school for it. I thought I wasn't good enough to be an actor, so I thought, you know what, I'm still gonna try and be an actor, but as a backup plan, I'll go to art school and I'll be a painter. It's a really solid economic backup plan there. I got my first professional theater job right out of college. I worked at a small summer stock theater in upstate New York, Cortland Repertory Theater. And I worked for about 10 years off of that first audition. And I learned pretty early on that if I wanted to always work in theater, consistently work in theater, I should probably have more skills than just being able to memorize lines and be entertaining. Because I went to school to be a painter, I easily picked up doing things like scenic painting and design work and things like that. And then I got into props design and building and set building as well. And I worked all over the country. I worked down in Mexico. Reno Little Theater is one of the longest running community theaters in the nation. It's been a fixture of the community since 1935. I am the technical director, production manager, and resident designer here at Reno Little Theater. We do 6 main stage productions a year. At any given moment, we've got about 3 productions in the hopper. We'll have 1 on stage. We've already been in production and rehearsals for the next show, and then we're also starting pre-production for the show following that. As a set designer, I'll have a brainstorming meeting with the director. I'll go back and do some really fleshed out sketches. I'll do a ground plan, and then from there I'll start doing renderings. I'll bring those ground plans into a 3-dimensional view so the director can really understand what their people are going to live in. We'll pick out colors, we'll pick out styles of furniture. Then I get to work sourcing the things that I need. If I need wallpaper, I gotta find that wallpaper and hopefully find it for really cheap. And then if there's furniture, what are these furniture pieces and where am I gonna get them? Am I gonna be able to pull them from our storage? Usually the last resort is to go out and buy something. But there's Craigslist. Craigslist has got to be the best invention for theater in modern history. The technical director's main responsibility is making sure that the set gets built safely. The funny thing about designing and about set building is that it's never done and nothing is ever static. Everything always changes. Production manager is a bit more administrative. They're in charge of making sure that all of the tech departments are getting their work done, getting it done to the satisfaction of the director and the designers, and also getting it done under budget. It's the iceberg effect. A lot of people see just the top 5%. You see a couple of actors on stage and you think, wow, that performance was brilliant. They're not really led behind the scenes to look at what happened 8 months ago, a year ago, when we started the process of what shows we were going to do and how we were going to do them, and having the director meet with the designers and figuring out all of the concepts and how they're going to tell the story the most efficient and evocative way. And then, 3 months ahead of time as we're pulling props and we're finalizing designs, and a month ahead of time as the set's being built and the lighting designer is choosing colors and figuring out how they're going to make special effects happen. And the 2 weeks before, when we get to load in the set and all of the people that are here involved, staff and volunteers, artists and craftspeople, for any given actor on stage, there are at least 3 to 6 different technicians behind them trying to make their performance the best it can be.
I heard you on the radio last night. You were wonderful.
Opening night, it is a lot of payoff. I am constantly challenged with how can I do something different? How can I make sure that when our audiences sit down and they see the world we've created for them to support the story and support the actors, that it's really something new to them. It's something that's going to delight them. And I hope we are a place where people can come and connect and feel the community and have thoughtful discussions about themes that we're dealing with in the shows that we present, and hopefully connect those to their everyday lives.
Way up in Hudson, New York, Jeffrey Gibson is using beadwork, ceramics, sculpture and paintings to create art that mixes his cultural heritage with minimalism and abstraction.
Growing up as a foreigner is something that I think about a lot now. You know, when you're a foreigner, you don't entirely understand what you're looking at or what you're hearing all the time. So you have this kind of subjective comprehension of the world around you that is an estimated guess. I think about that a lot in terms of how I use materials, because I use a lot of materials that I think many people may not know the context that I'm drawing them from, or what the culture is or the history is. So my mother's family lives in Oklahoma. My father's family lives in Mississippi. And those Choctaw and Cherokee cultures are extremely different. So when I would go there, it would be to visit my family. I never wanted to observe my family. You want to be a participant in your family. So we don't look at each other and think, oh, that's Native American. Then I began thinking, what was it about the quilts that Grandma made? Or what was it about the jewelry that she wore? Or the dresses that she made? What did the song mean that she would sing? And then it becomes something culturally specific, I suppose. But otherwise, it's just kind of inherently familial. It really started from a place of like, I want to take part in all of these things. I want to know how to bead. And then that starts off pattern, it starts off design, it starts off color choices. It starts off the challenge of what you can actually do with beads. I wanted to make found object work. And over the course of time, sometimes they are mashed together. I'm interested in exploring the transformative nature of materials and how the language can shift from a beaded triangle to a painted triangle to a woven triangle, and what those three different versions of a triangle mean. There was this period of club music that was the transition of analog music into digital. And it was the sampling and the turntables where people could sample music that was really had an impression on me. So this kind of repetitive nature of repeating and picking something from one context and sticking it into another one and making something new. I can spend the time in my studio mashing up, remixing, remaking, taking apart, reconstructing. And I can invite other people to take part in that with me. I think it's important to be transparent about the process. We acknowledge the assistants all the time, as much as we can. If it was just me making, for instance, a punching bag, we would be seeing one a year. The lines between craft and what's, historically been thought of as fine art, the decorative, embellishment, all of those things, in this environment are equalized. If you look at powwow garments, they're so loud and colorful. With that as my inspiration, in many ways, there was no limit to the combinations of colors. It's more thinking about what the color does in combination with each other. So it's either really kind of pop or electric or reflective or optic. I do have an attraction between the idea of minimalism and how minimalism leads towards like maximal density. I used to think that minimalism was about maintaining this quiet, silent place, like this void unfilled with things. And now I realize that the removal of information is in an effort to actually be able to see how much is present in a very small space or in a very limited palette. The idea is to, like, say, slow down the color red and understand how many shades of red there are. Slow down the color blue, understand how many shades of blue, tones of blue. And then, of course, it opens right back up into including every single color. My training is as an entirely process-based abstract artist. But the text was always meant to name this entirely subjective language of abstraction. And at some point, when the audience wasn't able to get the content that I felt I was putting into the abstraction, I decided to just start putting the text directly on it. Most of the titles, for instance, come from appropriated lyrics. And then it just kind of hit. There was something about the understanding that these words describe what you're looking at. Became a really big part of the work for me. People who were looking at my work at the time would always question, well, how does this relate to who you are? How does this relate to you as a Native American person, as a gay person? Is this subjectivity somehow representative of that experience? And it seemed no matter how hard I would say, no, it's not, it almost compounded more for people to look for connections in the work. And at some point, I decided to own the words Native American, to own the words gay, and not give them any kind of power over determining who I am. But I was fine with the work being described in that way, because it is true. This is my experience, and in the 20th century at that time, and even today, that's very much how we describe each other. I acknowledge that we're all very, very layered, complicated people. In our contemporary world, we don't always have the opportunity to explore that or to share that with each other, but it's what you can do in art.
That'll do it for this week's edition of Art Rocks. But as you know, you can always find, watch and share episodes of this show at lpb.org/artrocks. And if all this leaves you curious about the culture that surrounds you, Country Roads magazine makes an ideal companion for discovering creative people, places and things all across the state. Until next week, I've been James Fox Smith, and thanks to you for watching.